now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. There's been a lot of speculation as related to Discovery's acquisition of Time Warner. And many comic fans are speculating that Discovery, once it acquires your Time Warner and all of its assets, will sell DC Comics to Disney. And I'm here to tell you that your Discovery isn't going to be selling DC Comics anytime soon. Now, the reason why Discovery will not be selling DC Comics is because DC is a major wealth building asset for whoever owns it. And your Discovery knows that DC Comics is a gold mine of intellectual property, something it will need later on if it hopes to continue to compete in the streaming wars. Now, the main reason why Warner Brothers was spun off to Discovery was because HBO Max proved to be not profitable for AT&T. Now, AT&T had big hopes for the HBO Max streaming service, and it hoped that the same day release on streaming as the box office would pay off big profits. Unfortunately, HBO Max's same-day release for movies as related to streaming and the theater wound up costing HBO Max and Warner Brothers a lot of money, practically over $1 billion, and this is why your AT&T decided to spin off Warner Brothers to Discovery. Now, they did this strategically because they hoped to be able to merge both the Discovery and Warner Brothers content catalogs together in an effort to have enough content in order for them to be able to compete against Netflix, Amazon Prime, and be able to compete against Disney Plus. And also, they also wanted to compete against sub-streaming platforms like Tubi and Peacock, but I don't believe long-term that's going to do well for Discovery or Time Warner, because one of the big problems with content is that many of these content catalogs are extremely old, and much of the content on there is so old that most people just don't really relate to it, and the catalogs themselves are so large that most people just can't watch all of that content in one day. So what I'm seeing as related to the streaming services is content moves from one platform to another. For example, a movie will be on HBO Max for a few weeks, then it will move over to one of the other streaming services like Netflix or Amazon Prime, or it will move over to one of the free streaming services like Tubi and Peacock, and the smart buyer will sit there and just wait for it to come to one of the free streaming services and be able to watch that exact same movie. So most of the content people as related to streaming wars, they don't really understand that people want fresh content, and the money made on streaming, like on YouTube, is not made on old content, it is made on fresh and new content. Now, HBO Max tried to capitalize on that by releasing movies same day at the theater and on streaming, but this wound up with the two markets encroaching on each other. But the whole thing with people speculating that this will lead to a sale of DC Comics, this is a huge mistake, because DC Comics is considered to be a wealth-building asset for your Discovery, because the way that they're going to make money is through creating new content, and in order for them to make new content, they need to go out here and be able to adapt existing material in their catalog. And the DC Comics catalog has over 3,000 characters. So, with a catalog of over 3,000 characters, there are numerous intellectual properties that they can go out here and adapt in-house. Because with all of these different characters who have families like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, and even characters like Deathstroke, you could make thousands of different intellectual properties come to life over the next couple of years in things like their animated division, which is very strong, or their live action division. So there's a whole lot of intellectual property they can go out here and adapt, and they don't have to go out and buy the rights for that intellectual property. So it would be completely ridiculous for your Discovery to take an asset they just acquired and then sell it to Disney, because they have all of this intellectual property and they don't have to go out here and pay a creator like myself in order to gain access to that intellectual property. So why would they go out here and buy and sell an asset that would make them money? That's the critical question many comic fans are not really understanding. I mean, intellectual property that you own, all you have to do is go out here and greenlight the property, and the rights, you don't have to go out here and buy them. You don't have to go out here and pay 6 or 7 figures to a creator like myself for our characters. And with those characters already in your catalog, you can go out here and adapt it the way you want, because with adaptation, you are making your interpretation of the story. And what they want to do is go out here and have this gold mine of property. So it would only be smart to go out here and keep DC Comics. I know a lot of comic fans are frustrated with the state of DC Comics, and they're frustrated with the direction of DC Comics, and they want to see DC Comics do better. But sadly, as I see it, your DC Comics is practically has been damaged beyond repair since 2011, when Dan Didio created the New 52 and ended the classic DC universe. So there's not much anybody can do at this point, because the entire comic company is practically been damaged beyond repair, and the current continuity is practically been rendered irreparable due to numerous reboots. So there's not much anybody creatively can do for the DC Comics publishing division. It'll just continue to go on publishing comics, because that's how they'll be able to keep the trademarks long term. So the DC Comics is not going anywhere as related to its corporate owners. As much as you would like to see that happen, it's just not going to happen. So many comic fans are sitting here thinking, oh, Discovery is going to go out here and sell DC Comics. What person is going to sell a wealth-building asset? That's a critical question many people need to think about as related to speculating and making these rumors. I mean, if AT&T didn't sell DC Comics, what makes you think Discovery will sell DC Comics? So I know, again, many comic fans are frustrated about the state of your DC Comics. They're frustrated about the state of the comic book industry. And if you really want to go out here and read some good comics, you know, you're going to have to go over to those independent creators like myself when you see things like Indiegogos or your Kickstarters, and help those creators get their characters to the next level. Whereas for the DC Comics characters, yes, there will be a good comic here or there, like your Nightwing, which is written by Tom Taylor. Tom Taylor is doing a fantastic job on that book. It practically, in the last issue, felt like an old 90s DC comic when he was teaming up with Tim Drake. I mean, there are good comics out there, and if you want to continue getting good comics, you're just going to have to go out here and support those indie creators, because when it comes down to DC Comics, you might get 1, maybe 2 good comics, and that's going to be about it, because the industry as related to DC is practically been broken, and Dan Didio's, the damage that he has done is so extensive that it's just you just have to accept that it's just broken beyond repair. And there's maybe one or two good issues here or there, or one or two good runs here, but as it stands right now, DC stands for damaged comics, and there's not much anybody can do at this point. And the best thing for everybody out here who's a comic fan is just support those books that are of quality, especially those of independent creators, because that's going to be the future of comics, and that's the best we can do at this point. But there is no way that Discovery is selling DC Comics. There is not going to be Disney and going out here and owning both Marvel and DC, because nobody wants to give up all of those wealth-building assets, and it's just not going to happen. So when it comes down to DC Comics, it's just a bad situation, and you just have to deal with it and go on and just buy the comics that are out there that are of quality. Now, I've got a quality comic up on Amazon.com called Eastine No Good Deed, and if you want to pick up that comic, you can head over to Amazon.com and pick it up on Kindle for 99 cents. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.